Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's program, Portraits of Afghanistan in Memory of Ahmad Shah Masood. Before we begin our program, in the spirit of reconciliation, the Masood Foundation Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and the connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Throughout the years, we have seen photos, videos, and documentaries covering the war in Afghanistan in one way or another. During this period, there was one man that stood differently. This led photographers and journalists to travel through perilous terrain for an opportunity to meet the legendary leader Ahmad Shah Masood as he led the resistance against Soviet occupation and then subsequently the war on terror. Tonight, we have the privilege of hosting prominent and internationally acclaimed photographers, journalists, and artists who personally spent time with Ahmad Shah Masood and who will share for the first time unseen images which were captured at the time. It is a special opportunity to hear firsthand the personal stories and experiences that correspond with the photographs and images that are now and forever a part of Afghanistan's history. For this evening's program, Jafar Noor, who is one of the directors here at the Massoud Foundation Australia, will be moderating this event. On our panel of speakers, we have Mr. Reza Deghati, who is a world-renowned and award-winning photojournalist who for the last 3 decades has worked all over the world and whose humanitarian work has been captured in the National Geographic, Time Magazine, Newsweek, and El Paris, to name a few. Mr. Deghati was a close friend of late Masood, and we look forward to hearing his personal experiences. We also have Mr. Hiromi Nagakura, who is a world-renowned and award-winning photojournalist who over a period of 19 years spent approximately over 500 days with the late Masood. Mr. Nagakura has held many photo exhibitions sharing the images and stories of Ahmad Shah Masood, and we look forward to hearing Mr. Nagakura's experiences today as well. We also have Mr. Stephen Dupont, who is a world-renowned artist who works with photographic and documentary film. In 2007, Mr. Dupont was the recipient of the W. Eugene Smith Grant for Humanistic Photography for his ongoing project on Afghanistan. Mr. Dupont has held major exhibitions in London, Paris, and New York, to name a few, and has traveled to Afghanistan many times where he has photographed and spent time with the late Masood. We look forward to hearing his personal experiences. And finally, we have Mr. Tony Ashby, whose career as a photojournalist spans 5 decades, within which he has won the prestigious Walkley Awards twice and has been nominated as a finalist twice as well. Mr. Ashby was also a finalist for the Most Valuable Contribution to Journalism at the Walkley Awards. Some of Mr. Ashby's best work has been in troubled and often dangerous parts of the world, where he has captured moments in history throughout his career, including in Afghanistan with the late Masood. We look forward to hearing his personal experiences. After the discussions, we will have closing remarks by Ms. Tamkin Essa, who is a member of the Massoud Foundation Australia. Now, I would like to pass the floor to Jafar to start our discussion. Over to you, Jafar.
Thank you, Tariq. Good evening from Sydney. My name is Jafar Noor, and I'll be the moderator for the event today. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this event. And also, I would like to give a special thanks to all the speakers that have gathered here today. It is after 20 years, we are still talking and discussing the late Commander Ahmad Shah Masood. We have heard a lot from him, about him, from people around him. However, we haven't heard enough, I would say, from people that captured him, that captured photos of him, videos of him, and in other words, I should say, captured history for all of us. Today, we have, in order of speakers, we have Mr. Reza, who would follow with Mr. Hiromi then Mr. Stephen, and we will finish with Mr. Tony. Riza, welcome. It's an honor to have you here today.
It's an honor for me, and thank you for organizing, bringing all the friends together. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure, Mr. Riza. We will get starting with the program. Tell us, you had met Ahmad Shah Masood, and you spent time with him from the very beginning, against the Soviets. Later on, the Civil War, ending with the resistance period. What was it like to follow Ahmad Shah Masood? What was it like that in regards to his personality, his courage? And did you know that you will meet a man who you would call brother one day?
I had heard about Masoud before going to meet him. I was covering Afghanistan in the very beginning of the 1980s for Newsweek and then Time magazine as a correspondent. Also the magazine in the US, which was called Life. I was working for some French publication like Paris Match and other European. And everything I was hearing from Afghanistan was there is in a valley called Panjshir, a young boy who has started resistance. And obviously it was very attractive and questioning a lot. Who is this guy? Why is it? And how could I find? So my first time that I tried to read, for other that they had trip, they know that we had to go to Peshawar and meet different group of the people. I have already sent letter to Paris 6 months before to Masoud, and he has received the letter and he has answered that, okay, you are okay to come to meet me. But in Peshawar, we knew that very difficult because of all the spies that they were everywhere. Peshawar in the 80s were full of spies all the countries in the world. And every movement that you were doing as a journalist, you knew that many of them, they are following you and they know who you are and where you go. So it was very difficult for us to make sure that people, the spies, they will not know where we're going and who we are going to meet, which was very difficult. My first trip actually was organized in '83, and the night before we leave in Peshawar, I got some invitation by some group of the Pakistani group for dinner, and usually I had to leave at 4 o'clock morning Peshawar with some mujahideen that they were going to Panjshir. But night times when I and came back, I didn't feel good, and I have been poisoned in the first night. So I wasn't able to travel, and I had to stay in Peshawar, get treated, and then to go to other places because the Mujahideen group has gone. So the second time, this time was when I went to meet him. I knew more about him. I knew that he's a good chess player, for example, and I chess player. So I have brought a little gift for him, a pocket chess play, small boxes like this. And this made him laugh when I gave to him. The first thing that really, when I met him, was important was that it has been that I was in the different places, from Parachinar, from Chitral, from Kham. Every time I came in, after 2-3 days, I got ambushed by the Russians that they wanted to arrest me. So I had to return back to Pakistan and find a new road. So finally, I was able to Nuristane. And when we reached Panjshir, Masood, the first thing that he said when he came to meet me, saying that, "Welcome to Panjshir. I know all the things that you have been through." And he knew details of everything that's happened to me on the. This was my
Right.
first impression, knowing that I have someone that information is very important for him. And we all
You
know
mentioned
that the Masood got from information. I mean, he had the best ever information network, informal networks all around Afghanistan. Yes,
you
please.
mentioned regarding playing chess. There's actually a photo of you. If I could please request for them to move to the slideshow. Start talking about
This is the
your
photo.
photos. Right. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is the portrait that actually this was during a conversation I had with him. There was heavy bombardment, and he had hide in one of those small caves that Masoud has ordered his people to dig on. The city cave, the light that you see in his face, it is just a normal light coming from this opening of the cave, you know.
Right.
And this is the first times he told me that this was in 1985 actually, and he told me, you know, Reza, I'm confident that in 5 years from now there will be no Soviet Union. Now imagine this man sitting in a small cave, the bombardment, and telling you that from now there will be no Soviet Union. And I'm confused because my first thought was, oh, this man, he doesn't know what is the strength of the Soviet Union. He doesn't know that all European, all American, all around the world, it has been 40 years that they want to fight the Soviet Union, and they cannot do it. So he doesn't know about it. And I look to him and I say, imagine that what you say is right. No Soviet Union, what you will do? And he said, well, I'm planning of having a democratic country, planning for 6 months having a, provisional government, and then election. So he was planning fantastic. And in one moment I said, okay, but what will be happen between you Afghans, different fraction? And what in his eyes in my portrait is the moment that before answering, he just went to his thought for a few seconds. And that's how I got the portrait that you see. This is the pictures that you see now. It's in 92. I have accepted for 1 year, became director of opera of UN in 4 provinces, Badakhshan, Takhar, Mazar, and Kunduz. And I was bringing a lot of help and wheat. And one of my tasks was to meet with Masood and to bring wheat and help all the people that they were under Masood groups protection. So this is the time which I met Masood, and I was explaining to him all the project with the UN which I'm doing, and I brought 6,000 tons of the wheat in 1 year, distributed to Afghanistan by food for work. More than 10,000 workers, they were working and I was giving them. And following Masood, day to day, every day, I realized that he's more a poet, that he's really not a war, what you call it, the warlord, as the people they call it. And his main love was for education. He was really pushing every time in the most difficult conditions for education. Very nice moment with the children, but also spending a lot of time reading. You know, he actually, what I know, he has a lot of books, reading a lot of in the middle of the war and fightings. He always had his books. He had, you know, he has read all the books, Lenin and Mao, and of people that you talk about why he's reading Mao or why he's reading Lenin, and he said, "Well, I'm learning from them. I'm learning a lot of things from them," which was unbelievable. And this is yes.
So this is
After
where you play chess with him.
this is few minutes after we met. Yes, exactly. Few minutes after, when I show him, and you see in the pictures Muallim Naim, the first one that who passed away a couple of years ago, and then other one is Saranwal Dagigi, Mahmoud. Saranwal Mahmoud, we
Saranwal
call it.
Mahmoud. Yeah. So I've just read somewhere, you can clarify this. Did he ask you, when you showed him the chess game, did he ask you if you knew how to play?
Oh yes, he looks to me and he said that you play, and I said, well, you know, sometimes. We would just meet each other, and I didn't know exactly the personage. I didn't know the character, and all the people around him. I didn't know there was a lot of bodyguards also that carrying the guns. He never carried guns. So he looks to me, and in Farsi, he's خود ریف میدانی. This is very important. In English, he said, you play chess? I said, yes. And he said, but you don't think that you could compete with me? And laughing. And everybody laughs. And I realized immediately that this is a man who wanted to beat his rivals psychologically before even starting the war. You know, this is very important of the person, because he was trying to intimidate me by this word that you don't feel that you can compete with me, huh? And this is always happening between chess players, and so I answered him in a Ferdowsi poem, and I think that this had a important impact on our relation. because, either you should, in front of it, like him, saying that, oh, no, 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 sir, of course you can me. So, or you answer him. And my answer was a poet from Ferdowsi. As I laughed to him and I said, بیار آنچه داری ز مردی و زور چو فردا برآید بلند آب من و گرز و میدان و افراسیاب.
Wow.
Way asking a person, don't talk, come in the middle of the field and fight till morning, and the sun will rise over the winner. And he loved it a lot. I do remember that he looked at me and some minute of the silence. So he realized that I'm not the guy that is going to be intimidated by him. But he understands that I have knowledge of the Farsi or Dari literature and the poetry because he loves the poetry. And from this
Yeah.
time we started poetry a lot. We were reading.
To go further with you, unfortunately, due to the time, could you please maybe, as a last photo on the slide, could you please tell us when, where this photo was taken?
We are not far from the place they assassinated Khaja Bahauddin. There was a small position in front of Taliban. This was a time that Masood was really very tightly surrounded by Taliban, Al Qaeda, and Pakistan military in the north. November, December, and the first months of the 2001, very, very difficult for Masood because he was surrounded by Taliban, Al Qaeda, and Pakistani military. The whole world forget Masood. Even the United Nations, they were not helping Masood and the of the refugees. I went there to make this documentary for National Geographic, which is called Into the Forbidden Zone. And this is the last documentary about Masood and also the first country that there is about Masood, Taliban, Al Qaeda, and all the fight going on. This picture, it's in a moment that he's very sick. He has caught cold. He was a running nose. He wasn't feeling. The Taliban was attacking. They were in number, and we were under heavy shelling. But he always was like this. He never, as he used to say me, he was teaching me, saying that in the difficult situation, دلت نلرزه. دلت نلرزه, it's very important in Dari. It means that رضا جان دلت نلرزه. اگر دلت بلرزه باختی. This was he used to say that listen to your heart and never let your heart being afraid. Never let heart being shaken in front of the difficulties. Voila.
That
Thank you very much.
thank you very much, Riza. That was a beautiful ending. Hiromi, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to our program today.
Thank you very
Hiromi,
much.
you are from Japan.
Yes.
What made you decide to go to Afghanistan and meet Ahmad Shah Massoud during war?
Because we Japanese didn't know well about war in Afghanistan. Before seeing Masood, I visited and I covered, and I reported. But Japanese people didn't feel any sympathy so much. So why I cannot report good report to Japanese people? thought, okay, and when I get news about Masood, oh, I should see him, and I should stay with him. We are almost the same age. So as a youth, we feel something together. So I decided to go. Oh, it's a very hard trip. 10 days walking from Pakistan to Panjshir. And many mujahideen with me. But yeah, okay. So I show my slide. It's better anyway.
Sure, sure. We can move on with your slides.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is, of course, Masood. He was very busy. He had 5 offices in Panjshir. He moved, but he never say, I go that place. In advance, he didn't tell because it was very dangerous for him. Russian and opposite group, Hizb Islami, and the government, communist government also, they tried to kill him. But after suddenly he visit one office, many people waiting him they want consult something. And after that, he did training to the Mujahideen. They come from all over the country. And then he go home maybe at night and eat dinner and then talk again with his commanders. And then everybody sleep. After that, he went to his room and he developed his strategy. No electricity, only lamp. And the second picture is Andarop. It's north of Panjshir. He went there to start United Front with other place. And he moved every day to very influential people to visit. It's a wheat field. Yeah. And then, this is Masood. I like this picture very much because I loved his eyes gazing into the distance. Always, not always, sometimes he look very far away, not on the desk, not to the people. I liked why he showed such a expression. He becomes such a face. I thought he's thinking something. Always I consider what he's thinking. Now I can tell you, he always thinking about the future of Afghanistan and how can I help people of Afghanistan. Always take care, And then when I start, it takes time, sorry. This is a play.
It's okay. Please take your time. It's fine.
At night, worship with other Mujahideen under the tree in the Tahar. This is Tahar, Farkar in Tahar province. And then, okay, you can move. This is Masoud in his home, but it's a parent's home. Later, he built his home, but not in this time. Only 2 rooms. But when he returned his home, he sit here, and sometimes he reads some letter from Pakistan. This letter, his old friend sent him, but not postman didn't deliver. Just Mujahideen go on coming, and they delivered this letter. And he missed his friend, old friend, smiling. He loved friend very much, always. This is the front line, capital defense front line. This time Taliban surrounded capital, but he repulsed once, 1995. But next year, he couldn't defend because some commander, they betrayed him by the money. So, but this time, 95, he was in the front line and he sits still and he watching and thinking, yeah, okay. Yeah, this picture, I love this picture. But coincidentally, I took this picture. When I moved to Antelope on the mountain, we stayed one house. And then that time he was waiting other Mujahideen comes to join him. So that time he carried book in here and he went out. Oh, I followed him. Where he going with book? 100-meter walked and then he slept. He lay down there and he started to read the book. That time I was surprised. Oh, this is a commander in the war. Why he read like this? He read like this, like Japanese young people. I surprised. Just I took by surprising. But later, I visited him many times and I stayed more than almost 500 days. I saw many times he read books and poem or like that. So now I can say this is a symbolic scene of Masood, how he loved reading books. Yeah. This is a school. I doing support this school because it's very near to the house of Masood. But this is after martyrdom of Masood. When I visited here, before that I visited this place with Masood, and he loved this place. But after first anniversary of martyrdom, when I visited here, principal of this school took me here. Please watch this school. When I went here, no desk, no chair, no window, no doors, and the school book is not enough. And they sitting in a bare ground, and he did write some letters in a blackboard. Thus, this time I decided to assist to support this school because Masood always saying about the importance of education. He say education is very important to reconstruct this country. After war finished, it's too late. Now we must start. He always like this. Before martyrdom, he had planned to build 6 universities in Shamoli, in Charikar. But Taliban attacked Charikar and they occupied, and he couldn't accomplish that plan. But I wanted to share his dream. So I started to support this school. Yeah, please, second. Yeah, this. This is in the center, tall guy. He's the principal of this school. When I met him, he wearing fighting uniform, but now he changed a little bit. We together changed this school and painted. It's better than before. This principal name is Safdar. When I met him first, he said, I know you. You are always with Masood. I remember you. But I tell you why I'm here. I was a Mujahideen. I was together with Masood. When one day Masood said to me, I heard you have license of teacher. Why you don't go your home village? You should do teacher, much better than fighting. So Safdar came back to his village and he started to establish school. And he asked me, we couldn't get enough salary. Salary is very delay always. So teacher, they might quit. They might go to downtown to get other job. So please help. So also, by that reason, also I started to assist to support this school. Yeah, but now Taliban occupied here. It's very sad.
This is the last photo on your
Yeah,
slide. Can you please tell
yeah.
us
This
about
is
this?
2 years ago. This is first grade in a student, in a school. They are smiling, always happy to come to school because at home they are busy to help their parents and something. But they love to get lesson here. Look, second one from the right. Her father is Tajik and the mother is Hazara. But they didn't have any discrimination in here. They are very friendly together. But now Afghanistan, it's very sad. There is a kind of ethnic cleansing and discrimination for race. They destroyed Shia Muslim. It's very sad. Masood didn't care. When he welcomed Hazara commander, he prayed together in one place. Not like Taliban, not like Al Qaeda. So Masood was a great leader. But if he is just one famous commander, I didn't go so much. I loved his personality. So it's my duty to introduce his personality to people because I was with him. So yeah, in the future also
Thank
I
you.
continue to try. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hirami. That was very
Mm.
beautiful to hear the stories. Our next speaker, we have Mr. Stephen. Welcome, Stephen, from Australia.
Thank you, Jafar. It's great to be here.
It's an honor to have you here, Stephen. Stephen, when you had departed, where were you first? And where did you leave from? And before, it's a question that I normally like to ask is, did you know Ahmad Shah Massoud before, how much did you know of him? And was it as you expected him to be when you met him in person?
Okay, I didn't know really anything about Ahmad Shah Massoud. I first went to Afghanistan in 1993 to cover the civil war without really having much understanding of who Masood was. I was going to cover the story because I felt I felt a connection that I wanted to really focus on bringing back this sort of telling a story that wasn't being told at that time. I mean, the world was not interested in Afghanistan, and I really felt that it was a tragedy what was going on post-Soviet Union, the war with Russia, and now the civil war. And I could see how bad it was, and I wanted to report to the world what was going on. And so for me, it was a humanitarian mission in a way as a photojournalist to report on the human condition and the trauma of war and the suffering of the Afghan people. In fact, I only met Masood in 1995 for the first time because I was given an assignment by Le Figaro magazine to make a portrait on Masood with a journalist called Jean-Marie Montali, who in time became a very good friend of mine, and we would go back and do other trips with Masood. But on this first trip, I was assigned to make a portrait, and it was when Masood was then Minister of Defense under President Rabbani, and it was very official. I mean, I spent quite a lot of time with him, and I was. I mean, maybe we should show some photographs from that. yeah, okay. So this is that time. This is when this is in Masood's office when he was Minister of Defense, and I would basically, hang out with him and travel with him, and he it was very much from office to office or from house to house. There was not a lot going on, but it was still, interesting for me. Um, and in fact, my first impression was this is a really, I mean, I felt very privileged. I felt very kind of, for me, this was a man who held an incredible he had an incredible charisma. He had an incredible presence, and you could feel it when you were with him, even in a very banal place or in his office. Or I went and had ice cream with him at the house of Dr. Abdullah, or we would go and he would be praying with his close friends, and all of these moments, I really got to look at a man who had a real presence and power, and you could feel that around him. And so for me to photograph him was kind of easy in a way, because he exuded this very, very powerful kind of personality, and I really enjoyed photographing him. Maybe go to the next one. So in fact, this photograph became the double page opener to the story I did on him. He's in Pulikumri, I think, or Charika. I'm not 100% sure, but he's orchestrating some of his troops, organizing a tank. And in fact, what was kind of funny that was someone had painted a mural in Kabul, like a really big painting of this photograph. I never got to see it, but apparently it was in the city and it was massive. And Masood saw it, but didn't like the way that they captured him from this photograph, and he insisted they take it down. So um, that I think he wasn't happy with the way they painted him or something like that. I mean, hopefully he liked the photograph. I think he did. But go to the next one, and so this is again, being spending time with him, and then being invited to his house in Kabul with some of his children. And of course you have very young Ahmad Masoud, his son, who's now the leader. And so to have this kind of access, and to see the father, for me, was really beautiful. I was in, and this will kind of lead into a more in-depth study that I made when I went back to see him in 1998, because I wasn't so much interested in the warlord or the military commander. I was interested in the human being. I felt Masood had so much to offer, and it was he's such an incredible gentleman to be around. I really felt that I had an opportunity to capture the father in this situation, or the human being, and so forth. So carry on to the next one. So this is in Dr. Abdullah's house in Kabul, and this was after we'd sat down and had homemade ice cream, and it was really fantastic ice cream, I have to say. It was delicious, and just a beautiful, you know, quaint setting. And Masood is reading a letter. He was always reading letters. He had people, he was kind of the Pied Piper. People would follow him, they would give him letters. I mean, these were people who were asking for things a lot of the times, like, can you help, can you give money, can you do. I mean, he constantly had the pressure from people to try and help them. Continue to the next photo. And so in 1998 I went back, and this was the last time that I would see Masood. This was really the time that was the most powerful for me. This was the time that I really felt like I was making a really personal connection with him, because I'd already spent a couple of times with him before, and now I'm back there in '98. And There's a funny story where I was living in Paris, and again, the Le Figaro magazine was assigning me and Jean-Marie to go and cover another portrait story of Masoud. And we phoned him on his satellite phone to ask him, could we bring him anything from France, thinking he might want some medicine or some special food or clothing. I mean, he was a very stylish guy. He really dressed well. Maybe he wanted some French clothing, but what he said to us was, could you please bring me a tape of the final World Cup soccer match between France and Italy, because we lost the game. The satellite went down and we didn't get to see the match. So so that's what he really wanted. He wanted us to bring the World Cup game to him, which I thought was pretty funny. And so we flew via Moscow to Dushanbe in Tajikistan, and Masoud had one of his helicopters there, and the helicopter would take us into Afghanistan, into the north. At this time, he was only in control of about 10% of the country. The Taliban were controlling most of the rest of the country at this time. I mean, this was actually a photo taken a little bit later. I mean, Masoud wasn't in the helicopter when we flew from Dushanbe. In fact, we flew with a coffin. There was a dead general from the Northern Alliance, a very important person, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, but we had to fly the body back to a small village in the north of Afghanistan before we would then get dropped into Yangi Kala, which was where Masoud would meet us. Go to the next photo. This is a moment where Masoud is flying the helicopter. So this was interesting because a couple of times he would take over and fly and land the chopper. And there was one time we flew into Kunduz. And I remember the first time when Masoud jumped in to take over the controls, because I was sitting in the back with all his general, his commanders and his bodyguards, and I remember them all discreetly praying that they would land safely. I mean, they didn't want Masoud to see them. They were a little bit scared that maybe they weren't going to make it. I mean, Masoud wasn't really, he wasn't a professional pilot, so they were all kind of praying that they but they didn't want to insult him or disrespect him. So they were kind of like huddling down and praying, but we made it, of course. And Masoud did land the chopper quite nicely. A little bit wonky at the end, but it was okay.
Due to the time restriction, there is a photo I would like to ask you a question about. Can we just go to the next slide, please?
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much here.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
This
next
is him,
slide
like
again.
the Pied Piper.
Yep. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's this is
next slide.
This is in the garden. Yeah. This is him resting. I mean, he very rarely slept. Masoud, I never saw him really sleep. And so he would take little naps. And this one is a moment. He's talking to Taliban prisoners of war here in Yangi Kala. He was quite.
Could we just go back just very quickly?
Sure.
I'm just.
I think
what was he talking?
Here.
Yeah. What was he talking about?
Well, look. The thing is, what I with Masoud, this is the kind of leader he was. I mean, he had some prisoners of war. They were Taliban people fighting with the Taliban, but they were Afghans, and so he didn't treat them like prisoners. I mean, I found this is the human side of Masoud coming out. This is him having a joke with one of these young prisoners, and I felt I thought it was a very beautiful moment, and I felt that here's a leader, here's a future leader of Afghanistan, because here's a man who wants to unite the country. Here's a man who treats his prisoners well. I mean, they were barely locked up, and they would come and they would work in the fields. And I can guarantee you that the Northern Alliance were not treated this way with the Taliban. It was a very different story. And I really respected Masoud for this. I think that he felt that every Afghan was Afghan. And that even though they fought with the Taliban, they could still come over to the Northern Alliance. They could still unite. and be, you know, be one. I mean, he wanted the whole country to be one, and you know, his main regret was the foreign interference of Al Qaeda and other foreigners who fought with the Taliban. He really hated that. He really felt that really, you know, messed things up.
As a last photo, if we could go next, please, because correct me if
This
I'm wrong
one,
here, Steve. Yes, is this his? I've been told to ask this question to you. Is this where he's currently buried?
it is. It's where he's currently buried. So I'll just end with this, if you like. I mean, this is a
Please.
portrait session I did with Masood for the magazine in '98. Masood took us up here because we needed to do a formal portrait, and in fact, this was the one time I set up a photograph because, in fact, I never asked him to do anything, and I think this was why I got some amazing access, but this was the one time we had to do a formal portrait, and we asked him, where would you like to be photographed? And he said, I want to be photographed up here. And he took us up to this hill, and he said, this is my favorite place. This is where I want to build my home, my new home. And this is where I want to build a future guest house for people like you and other foreign journalists and foreign friends and Afghan friends to come and stay. This is my place of peace. And so we photographed him here, overlooking. So behind him is where his other house is, as you probably know. So you're looking down to his village, and and this is the actual hill that he's now buried in. I actually had a photograph but anyway, it doesn't matter where his grave is. But yeah, so it really has a lot of meaning for me, and it really, when I went back there in 2001 to see the grave, it was only been in the ground a month. I mean, I was there a month after he was assassinated, and of course, this is the place, and I felt, you know, what a spiritual connection, and that I felt while I was there. I mean, and I was the only person. The only other person there was one of his very close guards that was overlooking the grave, and it was very quiet, and there was only one person besides me, but it was a very, very special moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. That was quite an emotional ending. But really, thank you for capturing that beautiful moment.
Thanks for having
Our
me.
final speaker, no worries. Our final speaker for the event is Tony Ashby. Tony, welcome.
Thanks, Jafar.
It's great to have you here, Tony. Tony, can you run us through? When was the first time you met Masood?
It was only once. I'm not like the rest of your panel there, but it started. My interest started when I'd finished with the Balkans Wars, and I was in London, and I spoke to my friend who was the head of the news agency in London, and I said I wanted to go to Algeria because it was the hotspot. He said, I'm not even thinking about you going there because you're crazy. You need to go to Afghanistan because it's the forgotten war. He said, no, everybody's forgotten what's going on there. And so I took that to my editor and a top journalist, Norm Aisbert, and he liked the story of the forgotten war. We go and cover that. And then harking back to Reza when he said, who is this guy about Masood? And I'm thinking the same thing. And then I hear that Hiromi was the one who walked for 10 days or something up there to find him. Is that right? Am I correct?
Yes,
And
yes, that's correct. Yes.
and people did. I said, well, there's something in this guy. We've got to go up there and investigate. But situation, mainly the situation in Afghanistan was disgustingly bad for them. And when we were there, and we covered a lot of other events, the whole area around. We went down to Ghazni, and I had a tussle with the Taliban, who had a tug of war with my cameras with one of them. We had to get out of there quickly. But he was smaller than me, so And just delightful to see the guy there. He had so much charisma, but I reckon he had a military mind like a steel trap. And I just, and you can see in the background with my place here, I've got his portrait hanging in a room in my house, and I thought I'd pin that up. But he was a tremendous person. He was gentle, as you say, and he liked, look at him, he's just been a normal horticulturalist there. But it was only a short time I spent with him, but I was sort of totally admire him. So, yeah, I'm not like the other guys who spent a lot of time with him, but it was wonderful the time we did spend. And, yeah.
You also, we had spoken earlier to the event. You had mentioned that you went there to photograph him, but in fact, he also asked you questions himself. You found that a bit interesting.
Yes, he asked me what the residents of Sarajevo did about because Sarajevo was under siege for 3 years, and he asked about the Serb gunners in the mountains, and he said, how do they do that? Well, you couldn't. They were aiming at bread queues and even the hospital and the funerals. Well, they had a makeshift graveyard, and what they do is the mourners just got there and they just chucked got rid of the service as quickly as possible, and because they were opened up. Sometimes the mourners were attacked from the mountains, and yeah. So he's asking me about this, and I was just said, well, I'm not really a military mind. I just said it's very difficult when a city's under siege and you're down in a valley like that. Very difficult.
That's it's quite interesting to hear from a leader asking questions and wanting to find out information from people that are visiting himself. It's very rare. We are unfortunately short with time, so there's a lot of questions here, but there's one question that they would like to point out to Mr. Reza. Mr. Reza, you had been with Ahmad Shah Masood, and you have been with the son, who is currently the leader. What leadership qualities have you seen in the son that you had seen previously in the father, Ahmad Shah Masood?
I think that very strangely, Ahmad has everything that a leader needs in this moment, in this time. It means that his leadership is a lot matching our now. That's why it's different with what it was. Masood was mainly military and community manager, while Ahmad has been international. I was with him when he was in Paris also, different personalities and political people, and listening to him also how he's acting in people. So I'm very, very much confident on Ahmed's leadership, not only for Afghanistan, but it's becoming a new face, a new hope for youth and people in general in many, many countries in the world. So that's why that not only he got what we call it the education, but inside him also Ahmad has a very strong personality. Strong. So the future is bright for him. We all need, all of us, that connection with Masood. We need to put our energy, everything that we do around Ahmad. Ahmad is the real hope for the future, and we all, especially for that has this connection Masood, we all owe to Afghan people, to Afghanistan people, to Ahmad Shah Massoud, to this moment of the resistance, also being active. Actually, even I think that now they need more help and more of our engagement now than any time before.
Thank you very much, Rizal, for those words of hope in times like this, where Afghanistan is going through another period of hardship. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and as much as I would love to have this event ongoing, we would like to finish this off with a few words of vote of thanks and closing remarks by Tamkin Issa. Before that, I would like to thank each and every one of you. Thank you for sparing your time today, and I know you all are very busy, and it is truly an honor for us in Australia and everywhere else in the world to have you all here. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamkin,
Thank
over
you.
to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you speaking tonight and hearing some amazing stories that you have all shared with us. Some of you walking 10 days just to get to Panjshir Valley and Ahmad Shah Masood. That is just, in this day and age with COVID happening, I don't think any of us would imagine taking such steps, even in the middle of a war. That's just amazing. And Reza getting food poisoning in the process of going to meet him, it just shows how Ahmad Shah Massoud himself was a man of great character and great resilience and courage. And he attracted such amazing photographers around the world who heard his calls and wanted to um, come in support of it and make sure that was captured for the world to see. And I think coming from myself, being a woman, and seeing the photos of the young women and children, especially in some of the photographs, it's been really amazing to see that was captured and how Ahmad Shah Massoud wanted education for young girls and I guess young children. But thank you so much to each and every single one of you. I really do wish I could have a few hours with each and every single one of you to hear more about Ahmad Shah Massoud. But I know you all have great time constraints, and I do not want to take away from that. And thank you so much to those who joined us online, listening in, and listening to the story of Ahmad Shah Massoud, and just listening to the character of and who he was as a person. I think we can all learn from, and definitely backing Ahmad Massoud is extremely important as well. And going forward, because this is a time where we all need to support one another and maintain that momentum. Thank you so much.